What's up guys, it's Beck Hikes, and today I got a two-part video of the pros and cons of both the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. As I have grown up in North Carolina for all of my life, I have been relatively close to the entrance of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in the Blue Ridge Parkway, as Cherokee is the entrance for both of those locations, which is only about 30 minutes from where I grew up. I have been lucky enough to visit both of those areas throughout my life, so I think I have a good inception of how that park has grown and the pros and cons that I've seen and started to realize as I've got older that those parks offer. So for today, I'm just going to talk about the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, pros and cons, and for next week, I'm going to talk about Blue Ridge Parkway. So one of the first pros I think that's pretty obvious about the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is the beauty that it offers on its trails and the views that come along hiking those trails. As I've done the majority of the major hikes you could say that a lot of the tourists will do when they visit the park, I've tried to venture out and do those hiking trails that won't be as populated and still offer great views and scenery around those hikes. Most of the hikes I do involve views, somewhat waterfalls, but I haven't really done too many nature hikes, you could say, that might not end up with a view. You're just hiking through to see the nature and maybe a certain aspect of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Regardless of that, most of the hikes in there do offer some great views and scenery throughout the hike. And as you'll see, I'm going to try to showcase some of the beautiful views that I've captured in my time hiking in the Smokies. These trails are really enjoyable, and as you'll see, people will come from all around to capture and see these beautiful views. You get beautiful views in most seasons in the Smokies. Preferably, my favorite is the fall. I think fall is one of the most beautiful times in the park, as a lot of other people do as well. As you'll see, the busyness of that time rise up and be very busy, but it offers some great views, some great hiking, and you get some enjoyable hiking as well. You have sections of the AT as it runs through the park as well, so you can do backpacking throughout the park. You can got quick day hikes, you got longer day hikes up to 10 to 11, 12 miles, and then you got parts of hikes that's good for just any individual wanting to visit the park, with short hikes with waterfalls and views. And it offers a lot of enjoyable hiking trails throughout the park that I've known to enjoy so far. Another pro, but some people may think this is a con, is that the Great Smoky Mountain National Park has no fees that you have to pay to get inside the park. As other national parks in the US require fees to enter the national park, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, as well as the Blue Ridge Parkway, does not require fees to enter. I think this is a pretty beneficial part for the park, as you got people who may just be driving up to watch the sunset, sunrise, or just driving through Cherokee or to get to Gatlinburg. I think this allows people who may not want to hike, or are older and cannot hike, or may not be physically able to hike, can just drive whenever they feel the need to go up there and watch those sunsets, sunrises, and check out some beautiful views along the way through the Great Smoky National Park. As I get into the Blue Ridge Parkway, I think that is a huge factor of that location. But for the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, I think this is a pro. It allows more visitors, which, like I said, some people may think that's a con, but as for right now, I think it's a beneficial part to the park as well as the surrounding tourist cities. I think another pro of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is the, you could say, sections that it has throughout the park that you can visit. One of the sections that's pretty enjoyable is the Deep Creek area. It is pretty family friendly. It offers tubing in the water in the creeks that, as you could imagine, is about as cold as you could think. And it offers beautiful waterfalls, beautiful hiking, and is the town that is surrounding Deep Creek is Bryson City. It's a pretty cool little mountain town if you've never really been inside a true small mountain town. It's got a little bit to offer, some nice places to eat. And another place that's in Bryson City as well is called the Road to Nowhere. It is a tunnel that was created to connect another source into Bryson City, but after they created the tunnel, the road was dismantled, so you got a pretty large tunnel that is just empty with no road going through it, connecting to another road. So Bryson City and Deep Creek area is a pretty enjoyable place. If you're wanting to learn more history like that, you got villages like Elkmont. That's a pretty interesting place to learn and enjoy some hiking in that area, as well as Cataloochee is one of my more enjoyable places to visit. If I'm wanting to just read up on some history of the Appalachian people, you can see their houses and their cabins that were built that are still pretty maintained to this day. That lets you access inside the buildings and can see just how they were living during that time, which I think is pretty interesting to learn. and it's like a dirt road for the majority of the drive through Cataloochee. Another area that's pretty enjoyable but can get very busy during prime time tourist months is Cage Cove. I think it's one of the best locations to try to see wildlife and just see some of the natural beauty that the park offers. Like I stated, it does get very busy and can be car-to-car traffic through the Cage Cove area, but it offers some great beauty and the chance to see some wildlife. Another pro that I think is important for the park is the surrounding areas. As the park benefits from having those surrounding areas, and as those surrounding areas benefits from the park, there's three of them I'm pretty familiar with. I know there's other areas that connect into the park, but the three I'm going to talk about is Cherokee, North Carolina. As that Cherokee, North Carolina is one of the entrances into the park. Cherokee offers a lot of history as well as about the Native Americans, and you can learn, obviously we know all this is Native American land, so learning how they were to survive during that time is pretty interesting, and just other about the Native American culture. As well as it has a casino on the reservation, so if you're 21 and up, it's a pretty enjoyable spot to visit. If it's a rainy day or just super busy on the park and you want to get away, casino is a perfect spot to visit. As well, for the Tennessee towns I'm going to talk about, the first one is Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and it's a smaller town but offers numerous activities to do. It can get pretty busy in that town, but I think it's a pretty enjoyable place to see, pretty unique area. But my more enjoyable spot is if you keep going through Gatlinburg into Pigeon Forge. I think Pigeon Forge is one of the more enjoyable areas around. They always host events that bring people from all around in. One of them I enjoy is Rod Run, which can get very busy. As other activities, it's just there's other things to do on that strip on both sides of the road. There's just numerous activities for families and everything to enjoy on that road. As well as Dollywood, which is one of the main attractions in Pigeon Forge. I've been going there since I was a kid, and I think it's a pretty cool theme park, and it's pretty interesting to see how it has grown over time. I think Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, and Cherokee all offer pretty cool aspects to visit if you're going into the Great Smoky National Park. Now let's talk about some of the cons. As I mentioned before, there's no fees to get in the park, which allows for more travelers to go in and out of the park as they please. Some may just be going to drive by to see the look-offs, to go to Cleveland's Dome. Necessarily may not be hiking, but just areas they can pull off and capture a nice view, enjoy the drive into Cherokee or vice versa into Gatlinburg. But with that comes with the people hiking that I've seen these trails being extremely busy. The main trails that I'm mentioning right now. There's other trails outside of that main Newfound Gap Road that get busy as well, but the most busy trails, Alum Cave, Mount LeConte, Chimney's Top, Charlie's Bunny, Clingman's Dome, etc., those usually get busy in the spring and summer, and especially the fall months. As I've seen the Alum Cave trailhead just have numerous cars parked down the side of the road. And I think that's kind of a con, as obviously most people visiting want to do those beautiful hikes, and they're beautiful for a reason. So obviously more people are going to be on those hikes, and those people that have a short amount of time visiting are going to want to do the hikes everybody else is doing in that area. So I think that's an issue, as tourists aren't really going to go outside their way to do maybe a Mount Kramer hike, a Mount Sterling hike, a Bullhead Trail hike, hikes that might not be as busy as the main hikes I listed earlier, but still offer beautiful scenery and beautiful views along the way. So I think you could say it's a no fees problem, but I think it's just the popularity of the park growing and just numerous people visiting the park has caused a lot of the trails to get overpopulated, you could say. And that could be a downside to people just wanting to hike and get away from a lot of people and enjoy the nature. But I think that's an issue and a con, obviously, for the Great Smoky National Park. And another con just relates to that one. The parking can be an issue. Those trails, like I stated, Alum Cave, people will just park on the side of the road. Charlie's Bunyan, Cleveland's Dome, Timmy Tops offers a decent amount of parking, but if you're one of these people visiting and you want to do those trails, the parking can be an issue. So I would recommend, like I stated, there's other trails in the park. I'm just mentioning a few. There's hundreds of trails that offer great views and great scenery and nature, and you won't be as crowded. That probably offers a lot more spacing for parking that I think people should look into if they're visiting the park. So overall, I think the pros outweigh the cons of visiting the park. Depending on the season that you are wanting to visit the park, you will run into these issues. Like especially if you're coming in the fall, you will deal with those issues. So I would recommend, depending on what season you come, try to plan it accordingly. And just if you do come during summer and fall months, just understand that you will have those cons. But I do think the hiking and all the other aspects that I listed for pros are somewhat worth those cons. And especially if you can venture out, because the Smokies offers numerous trails outside those main trails I listed. So you can see the same beauty, the same nature, maybe even some wildlife on those trails with less people on it, and still get this Smoky Mountain experience that you would get similarly with those trails, but just with less populated and same rewarding trails. So I think the Great Smoky Mountains is one of the best parks that I've been to, especially on the East Coast. It's one of the most beautiful parks, and I would recommend seeing it if you can, and anytime you have the chance. As you'll mention in next week's video, the Blue Ridge Parkway connects right into Cherokee, which connects right into the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So you can check out two beautiful locations in the same day if you start early and capture some beautiful views. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. I know people are gonna have some more pros for it or more cons, but this is just from my intake as a young 24 male that has lived and seen the Smokies grow, and I've been fairly close to it. These are the pros and cons that I've seen it. I've obviously not hiked all the trails and had the 900-mile, stat of all the trails in the Smokies, but I've done a decent amount of trails that I think I can give a little insight. But if anybody else has hiked in the Smokies and has any other pros or cons they think, just let me know in the comments, and hopefully we can get back in the Smokies and enjoy it.